My name is Dan Mudd. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, and have been in San Diego, Southern California for about 10 years now. Missions for me started about 4 years ago. 3 years ago, we went on a house build down to Mexico, and it was just a one-day quick house build and everything like that. And we were able to really see God work in that missions trip. It was a short, just one-day trip, and it really just kind of opened up my heart, softened my heart for people. We're logistically 23 miles from Tijuana, and yet it feels like a world of difference when you cross the border. And we went there, and it was kind of a rainy morning in a sense and stuff like that. We got cars, vehicles stuck, and it kind of took us a little while to get to the project site. But once we got there, we saw how the family was living, and it was really, it made me take a step back to see how they were living. They were living with an old house, and we were building the new house, and overnight it had rained, so they put all their possessions inside the house. And literally, it was like everything they had of value that we were taking out of the house to finish building the house felt like stuff we'd thrown away, like in the States, and stuff me and my wife have thrown away. And it really like opened our hearts to just see the poverty, or see what they were missing out on. Not they were missing out on God by any means, or spirituality, or those kind of things, but like they just didn't have a house. They didn't have a home. Their possessions were limited and stuff like that. So we just felt like we wanted to really help them out. And I guess missions kind of grew from there. That's kind of the moment it kind of started. And I was able to kind of just have an open heart for people. I remember their faces like vividly and just clearly, and their little children and stuff like that. And that's like really cool, is just to get to experience, especially on the 3-day build, is like get to see the family, get to know them a little bit over the 3 days. Like when the family we were building the house for last year, the father, the person we were building the house for, he actually helped us out a lot, and it was really cool to see him just kind of work alongside of us. And none of us really spoke Spanish, but we were able to just kind of communicate and work together, which was really cool. Man, what the house means to this family is just, it's a blessing from God. I've been on another missions trip, and even the family we built the house for last year, they said it was like an answer to a prayer. And we just go down there and we think we're just building a house, but we're doing something big and important for this family, and just showing them God's love in a tangible way for them to kind of see. So that house just means, I guess it just means a lot, It means a future, protection, and really just God's love.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's worth celebrating, and I just want to say again, thank you. Thank you every time you give your tithes, your offerings, whether online or in these moments. You're helping do that stuff. We can't do that without you. You help scholarship people that want to go but can't afford to go. Help us do fun movie nights in this room and all that for the community. So thanks. Thanks for your generosity. Glad you're here today, too. Welcome. Lots to celebrate. Got the holiday. It's actually sunny on a Sunday for once, all that. The PLNU men's basketball team won last night, so they're in the championship game tomorrow night. And my Iowa State team won their conference tournament, so God answers prayers, in case you ever wondered. I don't know. Are you allowed to pray about that? I don't know. But anyway, glad you're here. Welcome if you're new or if you're back. Good to see you. I'm Carter Moss, pastor here. I wanted to start with a little bit of quiz, a little bit of check your culture knowledge. A couple famous opening lines of mostly books or movies, I guess. Not too hard. I don't want to make you feel bad about yourself in church. So we'll keep it a little easier. But how about this one? You can shout out if you know. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Star Wars. All right, Star Wars. Start something easy. How about this one? A A long time ago, in a hole, there lived a little hobbit. Not quite Star Wars. An Ewok, maybe. Yeah, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit. No, I'm the only nerd that likes that. That's okay. We talked about Tolkien a couple weeks ago. How about this one? It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Tale of Two Cities. Hey, nice. All right. Some of you are classically trained. That's good. How about, here's a little harder. All children, except one, grow up. Yeah, Peter Pan. Nice. Well done. From the book, not the movie. Good. I'll get you a free coffee afterwards outside from Moby Beans. How about this one? In the beginning. In the beginning, God created. Bible. Listen, the right answer in church is always just Jesus. Just yell out Jesus, and then you're right like 90% of the time, right? That's how it works in kids ministry. Like Jesus. What's brown and furry and we love to pet him? Jesus. It's like, no, it's a squirrel, but that's okay. You can say Jesus. So he's usually the right answer. In the beginning starts the greatest, by the way, best-selling nonfiction book of all time, the Bible. And that begins the whole book. I don't know if you knew this or not. Of course, the Bible's a collection of books, really, right? 66 different books make up the Bible. But there's another book in the Bible, not just Genesis, another book that actually begins with the words, in the beginning as well. So see if you recognize this. In the beginning, here's the other book in the Bible. It starts like that. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. And the Word, it's talking about Jesus. That's a cool nickname, by the way, right? The Word. He was with God in the beginning. Through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. And in him was life. And that life is the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. I like that. Light shone in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. That comes from the beginning of the Gospel of John, one of the 4 stories about Jesus in the Bible. And John wrote that, and he calls Jesus the light because that's what Jesus called himself. When he says in the beginning was the Word was with God, it says Jesus was all the way back actually in the beginning in Genesis because God existed in the Trinity and in this whole way that kind of messes with our brain because it's hard to comprehend. But he says he's the light. And he says that because Jesus says that about himself. And we're in the season right now in a lot of churches. It's called Lent, but it's really this idea of kind of focusing in ourselves, refocusing on Jesus as we prepare ourselves for Easter. You know, kind of focus ourselves kind of mentally, spiritually. And so we've been talking through. We said one of the best ways to learn more who Jesus is let's look at what he said about himself, who he says he is. And it turns out that in the Gospel of John, 7 different times, he says, I am this, I am that. And so that's what we've been looking at and what we'll keep doing all the way till Easter. So I hope that whether you're brand new, you're still exploring this, you're not even quite sure what you think about Jesus yet, or if you're someone that's kind of been around him your whole life, kind of walking with him around churches your whole life. Either way, I've been hoping, praying that you're going to learn something new about who Jesus is. I want him to become even something more in your life. See him in a different light, maybe than what you have seen him before. So we've talked about how Jesus said, I am that I am. I am Yahweh. I am the God, the unpronounceable name of God. Last week we talked about, he says, I am the bread of life. So that he's bread. And this week we look at this story, and it's in, it's in Gospel of John, and in chapter 8, that's where a couple of his other I am statements are actually, that we've already looked at. But here's what's happening in this part of the story, because I want you to kind of get the scene of what's going on. It's one of the feasts, the Feast of the Tabernacles. We talked about all the different feasts of the Old Testament just a couple months ago. But so that the Jews still celebrate this, and he's there. He goes to the temple. And he's in a place called the Court of Women. So it's the spot in the temple that the women are allowed. Sadly, things were very segregated back then. But here's what's so cool about Jesus. He's always elevating women. He's always crossing gender barriers and racial barriers, by the way, because Jesus comes to put an end to all bigotry. And so he puts an end to all bigotry. So he said, well, I want everyone to hear what I have to say. So he says it in the court of women, where women and men can both be, which is pretty cool. And John includes that detail in there. So standing in the court of women, and you really got to kind of picture, because I've actually kind of read this thing, heard this many times in my life, but it took on a different meaning once I kind of understood where he was when he's saying this. So he's in the temple, court of women, and what's cool is if you kind of know what it looked like in there, tried to find a photo, but they just didn't have Instagram back then, and so couldn't really look it up anywhere. But picture this: there's 4 really large stands, like in the 4 corners. They're 75 feet tall, with like 4 big lamps at the top of them. And so 75 feet tall, 4 lamps full of 10 gallons of oil in each one. So, I mean, they're huge. I almost picture like 4 giant, like Olympic torches, right? And that kind of lights up the 4 corners. And so you really got 16 bowls are all lit up of just fire, and they light these things. And all the walls of the temple are kind of like this limestone, kind of yellow, and so all the light really glows and reflects. And of course, back then, no man-made lighting other than the natural lighting. So at night, it's like pitch black, in a way that many of us rarely see unless you go out in the desert or something to visit. So just pitch black. And so the fact that this one spot was just lit up like that, right? Almost like lit up like the whole town. Whole town of Jerusalem is lit up just because the temple is lit up like this. It's lit up for this festival, and Jesus standing under all these bowls of brilliant light. And that's when he says these famous words. He says, when Jesus spoke to the people and said, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." And so I just picture people where it's just pitch black everywhere, but they're in this brilliant light, and he says, "I'm the light. I'm light of the world. You won't have to walk in darkness." I would think that would be a pretty powerful moment. The Pharisees don't think so, though. Fun ruiners. They're always getting all upset about stuff. The Pharisees challenged him. They'd be like, "Come on, God, you just ruined this incredible moment." They challenge him right away. They jump on his case. "Here you are, appearing as your own witness. Your testimony's not valid." He answers them back, "Even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, for I know where I come from and I know where I'm going." Right? He knows some things about himself that they don't know. "But you have no idea where I come from or where I'm going. You judge by human standards." He says, "I pass judgment on no one. But if I do judge, my decisions are true because I am not alone. I stand with the Father who sent me. In fact, in your own law," I love he kind of turns the law on them because they love to quote the law to people. "In your own law, it's written that you need the testimony of 2 witnesses to be true." Well, I have 2 witnesses. He says, "I'm one of them. I can testify for myself. And my other witness is the Father who sent me." Then they asked him, "Well, where is your Father?" He says, "You don't know me and you don't know my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father also." We talked some last week. He's saying he's always trying to connect because, who the Jews believed in is the God of the Old Testament, the God of Abraham and the God of Moses. And Jesus keeps trying to tell him over and over again, "Yeah, that's my dad. That's my dad. That's who I am. Me and the Father are that." So what did he mean by light of the world? And even more important, what we've been saying every week of this, it's not just let's learn some theology about Jesus. It's what in the world does this have to do with your life? And you're going to like this week's because it's really good news for your life. When we understand what he means when he says, "I am the light of the world." What did he mean by light? I mean, we get light because it's a simple metaphor. By the way, pretty cool that Jesus used timeless metaphors. Isn't that cool? We're in 2019 and all the technology in the world. So the Bible's so old and outdated and irrelevant. Yeah, Jesus talks about bread, about light. And you know what bread and light is, right? I mean, I don't have to explain it to you. You didn't need a seminary degree. I love that about Jesus. He says, I'm kind of like bread that you eat every day. Kind of like light that you see every day. Right? He speaks in a way that you can get it. Makes sense to you. So what did he mean? He's the light of the world. Well, he was actually called that long before he ever came. Old Testament, book of Isaiah. We usually read this verse at Christmas time because it's prophesying when Jesus is going to come. But it says he's going to be the light of the world. For people walking in darkness, The Jews would know, they always thought of God as kind of being light. Those things kind of made sense to them. I mean, you think all the way back to the very beginning of Genesis. The opening line is in the beginning. But the opening line, first time we ever hear from God, you know what he's saying is, let there be light. Right? In creation, the whole world's darkness, and the very first thing he brings is light. Let there be light. And then when the Jews are being freed from slavery, we spent a lot of January talking about the Exodus story. They're taken out of slavery into the promised land. And as they're walking through the desert, they don't know where to go. They need something to guide them, so they have a cloud by day. And you know what they have at night? A bright light. It's a pillar of fire. And so they're used to following light around, and so light would lead them. Then, of course, we get to the New Testament. Jesus comes on the scene, and how do people find Jesus? They follow the Star of Bethlehem. And so there's light again that's guiding people. And then Jesus comes on the scene. He says, I am the light. I've always been the light. I'm the light of the world. And then what's cool is if we read in John chapter 9, right after he says he's the light, he's literally physically bringing light to someone who's been blind their whole life. So literally walking around in darkness, and he opens their eyes and he can see. And so God from in the beginning, all the way through the end, has always been about light. And this light brings hope. He says, hope to people walking in darkness. And sometimes it's a long wait. Sometimes you're walking in darkness for a little while. In between the end of the Old Testament, the last time, as far as we know, that anyone ever heard from God, and Jesus shows up on the scene at Christmas, Star of Bethlehem, that's 400 years of walking in darkness. Where's God? We all, they'd say, we all know Isaiah 9:2, but where's God? It's been 400 years, and then Jesus comes on the scene. I am the light. I'm the light you've been waiting for. And so he comes to fulfill what people have just been hoping for. I don't know what you've been hoping for. I would assume, I'll just guess, that you've got some hopes in your life. I hope that you haven't been waiting for 400 years, but I know it could feel like that though, right? I mean, it could feel like it. Sometimes we're hoping. We're hoping I'd be married by now, hoping have a kid by now, hoping I'd be done with school by now, hoping I'd be out of debt by now, hoping this person makes it through their fight with cancer, hoping that I finally find a job, hoping that I won't feel lonely anymore, hoping that I have some purpose. That's why I know whatever those hopes are, that's what Jesus comes to do. That's what he does. That's what light does. That's what light does, right? When you're in pitch black, whether it's an exit sign, whether it's a lighthouse for ships, whether it's somebody finally has a flashlight they turn on when you're out camping, when it's pitch black, you're just looking anywhere. I just need some light. And that's what Jesus does, what he's always done. He brings light into the darkest areas of your life. I'll be honest, for me, because I try to be honest up here, because your family, church family, I felt some darkness lately. Had two friends last week in Chicago that both died, and it was just sad to hear about back where I moved from. One was a guy in his 80s who my small group helped get off the streets and get into a place, and we just invested in him, threw a little 80th birthday party for him. Man, love that guy. He has a beard down to here, just this awesome dude. And he had just passed away. Just sad to hear, wishing, I hadn't talked to him in a while. And then good friend of mine, his daughter, 17-year-old daughter, is good friends with my 17-year-old daughter. And she died last week. And it was sad. Doctors can't explain it, just totally out of the blue. And it was tough, man. My heart's broken for him, and it hit so close to home. Having a daughter the same age. And, come back here, got some good friends who have lost some people close to them. And I just have a lot of family members right now that are out of jobs, looking for work, friends I'm praying for. So I just share that. You don't have to carry that. I just want you to know that, I know that feeling too, right? Sometimes you're just like, man, why does everything hit at once, right? It's like life just feels a little bit darker right now. And that's where I like it when he's really just preaching to me, but then, you just get to hear a little bit of it. But, and he just reminds me, but this is what Jesus does. He brings light. He brings light, right? He brings hope. By the way, even physically, this is backed up. Have you heard of seasonal affective disorder? That's sad, right? Seasonal affective disorder. It's a real deal. It was for sure a real thing being in the Midwest, man. We'd go February, March, and not see the sun 5-6 weeks. I mean, crazy. I thought we never had to deal with that out here in San Diego, but it's been a harder winter, right? I mean, just saying. I mean, really, we were all dying for the sun, right? I mean, it's been a long time. So no joke. Yeah, I had a couple people in my life group like, yeah, like my seasonal affective disorders kicking in. You know why? Because we need light. Yeah. I mean, we don't have light. It's even affecting you physically, mentally, emotionally, and I would argue spiritually as well. Because light brings health, and it brings life, and it brings hope. And this is who Jesus is. This is who he is. So I just want you to know that. Don't just know it theologically, all right? But wherever you're feeling darkest right now or needing hope the most, this is who he really is. And I love, he actually invites us into the light. Whoever follows me, you never have to walk in darkness again. You get to walk in the light of life. And as always, Jesus is talking about eternity and the here and now. He's the God of our eternity. He's the God of our present tense. So he says you'll get to walk in light even after your funeral. When you follow Jesus, you'll get to walk in light forever. That's some encouragement to me about my friends who I lost. They're in the light in some better ways than I am, way better ways than I am right now. And because you get to always be in the light in eternity. But you don't just have to wait till then, though. You can have light in this life. That's what we've been talking about all since the beginning of the year. Is Jesus cares about this life, too, in the here and now. And so you get to walk in light, right? He says you'll never walk in darkness. You say, well, Carter, I thought you just said you're in some darkness. There's still some darkness coming. I don't have to live in it, though. I have to live in it. I don't have to live there and stay there and walk in there because he always brings light into that. And so he comes in and he brings light into our darkest places. And he comes and says, I want to bring you clarity. He's the God of clarity, not confusion. And I love that. I need that reminder a lot when I feel confused where to go, is he brings light, and light brings clarity to things. He's the God, darkness usually is associated with fear, and he's the God not of fear. In fact, John would write later in one of his letters that God's perfect love actually drives out fear. The psalmist says, the first psalm I ever memorized pieces of, Psalm 27, he says, the Lord is my light and my salvation, so who should I fear? You got nothing to fear. And so if you're someone who's followed Jesus, just know you can always come back to him. I just come back into the light, trying to bring some light into you. Maybe you've never experienced that yet, though. Maybe you say, I don't know. I think about Jesus. I don't need that. I'm kind of fine over here in the dark. And maybe you've just never really tasted it, never really experienced it. But he invites us in to walk into the light. Sometimes the reason we're not experiencing light, just trying to keep it real, sometimes, we don't like to say it this way, I think we're just comfortable in the dark. It's like a little bit better in there because you can hide a little more in the dark. That's kind of where, some of the dark deeds are done, right? It's kind of like in the dark. John said this, if you back up to chapter 13, he actually says, the light has come into the world, like he said at the beginning. Remember, light came in the world, but darkness didn't overcome it. But people loved the darkness. They loved darkness instead of light. Their deeds are evil. Ooh, evil. We don't like to use that word very much, right? Evil. We only use that word for like terrorists and for like world dictators. We don't like to think that you and I do evil stuff on a day-to-day basis when we're going to the grocery store and driving to work. But evil. We're all capable of that. And sometimes we just kind of like to hide in the dark. Feels a little more comfortable there. I can get away with a little bit more. What are the things that keep us out of the light? Again, sometimes we choose it. Other times, it's like stuff happens to us, but rather than return into the light, we kind of choose to stay in there. You answer for you, and I'll answer for me, but what is that? What is it for you? Sometimes when hard suffering hits, the first thing we do is kind of run away from the light. We get mad, we kind of blame God for it all, and we go back and hide in the darkness. I don't know how much good that does us, but, I guess we feel better about ourselves. I've done that, just kind of blame God, but that's not really helping anywhere. Sometimes a person, we actually let people rob us of light in our life. I have done that before. We think somehow, somehow they have more authority in our life than the God who says, I am the light of the world and darkness won't overcome me. Sometimes we let a person do that. Distractions, for sure. We talked some last week. That's part of the beautiful power of Lent. Part of it is purposely saying, I'm going to set aside things. They're not always bad things. Sometimes they are, but often they're not. They're just things that are distracting me right now, whether it be shopping or certain kinds of food or technology or whatever things. For a season, I'm setting aside these distractions so I get more Jesus Give myself some more room to invite Jesus, focus on him. Our shame, when we choose to never forgive ourselves and just walk in guilt and in shame, and I hope you hear the message of grace every single time you're here. But when we choose to just keep believing in shame instead of what God says about us, it's going to feel dark. Deliberate sin, our deliberate choices, just outright staying in our addictions, our patterns. By the way, I know that's a hard thing to overcome alone. I wouldn't expect you to. We'd love to help you with that. We have an awesome life group that we just started. It meets on Sunday nights during our 5 o'clock service. Just people just working through all sorts of different kind of challenges, and so if that'd be helpful to you, just come join. We got men and women both, and you get to join us all for dinner after. So, but we'd love to help you with that disconnection. I know as soon as people are struggling, I watch them pull away from church, pull away from life group, pull away from any community that used to represent light in their life, and then we wonder why things are dark. I think it's pretty dark when we're alone. That's why Jesus always talked about this as a family. It's not an event or a group or an organization. It's family. It's family because it's hard to walk in the light alone. So Jesus comes so that we don't have to do that. And sometimes we think being in the right means that we're in the light, but it's just not true. I mean, that's the deal with the Pharisees. They think they're so in the light, but they're really out to just kind of prove all the time that they're in the right. And sometimes that's all we want to do. I just want to prove I'm right. We need to win every argument on social media, win every argument with an ex or with family members or with friends, and then we find ourselves, I guess, kind of alone in the dark. Because it doesn't matter to just always have to prove you're right. It's more important to just walk in the light. I think about in the Apostle Peter, what he wrote, I love in his letter. We talk about it in the life group that I do for newcomers, 1 Peter 3:15. And he says when you're talking to other people and the way we interact with the rest of the world, he says, always give a reason for the hope that you have, light, right? Because hope is light. And do it with gentleness and respect. Gentleness and respect. So it's not enough to just tell people all the time that they're in the dark. We're actually meant to just bring light instead, be light. And that's the last piece of this, is that his light, so remember what light does, it exposes things, but light also guides and directs. Right? That's why we need light when we're out in the darkness. When I proposed to my wife about 22 years ago. And I had it all planned really nice because we kind of walk through the woods and come out. This is in Iowa. And then we come out to like this beautiful lake, and it's on the side of the lake. And I'm not embarrassed to say it. I wrote a poem and I read it. And she still said yes anyway. That's right. I'm secure in my manliness. And so I did. I read the poem down on my knee and proposed. And she thought about it for a couple hours. And then finally she was like, I guess so. But that's all right. That didn't shake my confidence. No, it was an instant yes, okay? But don't doubt me. It was an instant yes. And she, like perfect night. And then we're there. I timed it well because we can watch the sunset. So that's pretty awesome, sunset over the lake. So feeling pretty awesome about myself, except now we got to walk back through the woods, and it's dark, and I'm old enough that we didn't have cell phones with built-in flashlight. So, yeah, I had no flashlight with me. No phone. You all get to carry one now because they're all in our phones, but I didn't have that. And so we're walking back in the dark. Like, I forgot one detail. How do we actually walk back where we're from? This is like a horror movie. We're a couple in the woods, right? With no light. And we did make it back. Nobody broke an ankle or something, although that would have made, I guess, even a better story. But luckily, we made it back, although it did get her to hold my hand really tight the whole way back. So, I mean, that was cool. I guess I planned that part. But yeah, we made it back. I was like, yeah, I was scared. I'll admit it. I'm like, if anything comes, I don't know if I can fight it off right now and defend her, not feeling confident about myself. We really need light to direct us. We get really lost without it. That's why I love that Jesus uses that picture, right? He can expose the things in your life, and you don't like how that feels, but it's good for us, right? It's important. That's why we step out of the dark into the light. But then he's that light to guide us, illuminate our path. And then when he guides us, we can guide other people. The same John who writes Gospel of John also has some letters at the end of the New Testament, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. And here he is talking about light again. I love it. He just gets it. Check it out. He says, this is the message we have heard from him, from Jesus. We declare it to you. God is light. There he goes again. God is light. In him there is no darkness at all. If we claim we have fellowship with God, if you claim you're a follower of God, yet we walk in the darkness, he says, we're lying. Again, he just says it like it is. He says, you can say all you want. I love God. I love church. I go to church. If you're just walking around in the dark, it's like, yeah, you're not living it. But when we walk in the light, like he is in the light, then we get to have fellowship with each other. So that's the other cool thing, right? It's kind of like, the more lights you add together, it becomes, I guess, even brighter. So that's the other deal. It's not just walking the light alone. When you walk in the light and other people walk in the light, and then that's another thing that connects us together. We can be light to each other. So when some of us have some of the darker seasons in our lives, and we get to be light to each other, which I think is really cool that he points that out. And that God has nothing to do with darkness. Remember, that's what he said, nothing to do with darkness. So I don't know what you grew up thinking about God or what was taught to you, but just know that he has nothing to do with darkness, with hiding things, with manipulating. He's a God of being in the light. And here's one more thing. I got to show you one last thing about light, all right? One last thing. And Jesus, this one other thing Jesus said about light. It's my other favorite thing he said. He says, I am the light of the world, as we saw. And of all the 7 I am statements, I am the bread, I'm the light, and we'll look at things like I am the shepherd and I am the gate. There's only one of all the I ams that he turns around and he says, you are. I am, and now you are. He says, I am the light of the world. And then in his famous Sermon on the Mount, on a mountain, in the Gospel of Matthew, he says, you are the light of the world. Like a city on a hill that cannot be hidden. Remember, he's speaking in this temple that's lighting up the whole town. He says, nobody lights a lamp and just puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it can give light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine for all to see, so everyone will praise your Father in heaven. Let your good deeds shine for all to see. I love that. He says, I'm light of the world, so now you go be the light of the world. Right? The difference is we don't generate our own light. We just reflect his. So, we aren't the sun, we're the moon, I guess. You think about that, right? We're not the sun, only he is the sun. See what I did there? But only he's the sun, and we're the moon, which if you remember all the way back in 8th grade science class, the moon actually doesn't generate any light of its own, right? No light of its own. We only see it because the sun's reflecting off of it. So it only reflects light. By the way, the one time the moon's dark is when the world gets in the way. Oh, you're welcome. I'm done now. I'm just going to no. I'm just saying, thank you, science, for backing up everything about God, right? So when the world isn't in the way, it gets to reflect light. Of course, Jesus could have also he could have said, you are the glow-in-the-dark toys in the world, would have been the other way to say it. Because part of what's cool with glow-in-the-dark stuff is it only glows in the dark after it's absorbed light, right? You got to let it sit under the lamp. See, we can keep going all day, but I know you got to go eat lunch eventually. But, light, right? There's so much depth to that. And so, we get to be glow in the dark. Like, let me soak up that light, and then I go out and just shine it and just glow in the dark. So we're meant to bring light into the darkest places of our world. So where is that for you? Where's the darkest place? World's felt a little dark lately. A little dark, right? Another huge tragedy this last week. And over New Zealand, so sad. And obviously things felt dark in the country and for sure even in our own town. I've been talking about even in OB. But we're meant to bring the light into those darkest places. And listen, we really can do that. For real. This isn't just like the church has come up with another program to do this. You can bring light into the darkest place in your world. And I got to tell you real quick before we're done my favorite story about that, because this is real life stuff, so I love it. And happened, it's this lady, she's my favorite female speaker I've ever seen. She's so good, Danielle Strickland. And she used to work for the Salvation Army in Australia. And they were looking at this whole passage and just saying, where's the darkest place in our world or in our community that we could bring light? And for them, there was a brothel in their community, which If you don't know, that's where prostitutes work and hang out. So it was a brothel. And so this lady and her women's group, so you got to picture like older ladies because it's a great story. So she brings all these older ladies, and they go knock on the door of the brothel, and someone answers. They're like, who are you? And they say, well, we're brothel chaplains. They just made that up. And like, well, what does a brothel chaplain do? I said, well, we do whatever you want. We'll help do laundry or wash dishes, or in fact, we could even pray for you. And one of the ladies goes, oh, please, you come pray for me because someone put a curse on me, so I really need someone to pray for me. And so one of the sweet old ladies sits down across from her and praying for her. While she's praying out loud, she gets interrupted. Another lady goes, do me. You got to come pray for me too because I got a curse too. And so she starts praying. So there's multiple old ladies praying with multiple prostitutes. That's a brilliant scene right there. But then it gets better because then the guy who runs the place literally comes in and goes, what's going on in here? And one of the ladies just stands up and goes, anybody want a muffin? And so she had muffins. Because, Jesus is the bread of life. And so she had muffins and gives him a muffin because muffins from old ladies kind of fixes everything, right? That just kind of calms everybody. And gives a muffin to the guy and to people in there. And I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. He accepts Jesus and shuts down the brothel because these ladies brought light into the darkest place they could think of. That's crazy, right? That's what we can do. That's what we can do. That's what God can do in you and I. I pray this last verse whenever we do an outreach together. Say, God, let the people of OBE in Point Loma see our good deeds so they can praise you. Whether we're hanging Christmas decorations or we're scraping off stickers and we're painting buildings and throwing movie nights and serving food and all the stuff we do. God, just let them see that so they know who you are. All right? Love that verse. Just let them see that. So who's that for you? Who's that for you? I really wanted to give you actual little light to be able to take with you so it could actually be like this tangible reminder of what this is. And so we're actually going to pass you out some lights right now. So Usher's got a few in buckets. Just something little. I'd like to give you a whole nice, huge flashlight, but, budget. But we got this. And so there's all different colors. No significance to the color. You can pick any color that you want out of there. Just don't take too long deciding. But you can pick a color and pass it person next to you and take a light out. I like that the different colors kind of represent that we all kind of shine light sort of a different way, because we're all wired with different personalities. So we get to bring light to the darkest places in our own ways. Right? That's good. But part of the power of all of us having light, obviously, I only have, so much light, and church staff only has a little bit of light. But when you get a whole body, a whole family of Jesus followers all being light, it becomes pretty bright, a lot brighter than just one, which you'll see in a few moments here as we'll try these in the dark here in a minute. So let's all get ours. But yeah, I'd love for you to just keep this with you. You can take it somewhere. Hopefully it's actually handy for you, but also that every time you look at it, you're just thinking, this is what I'm meant to be, that we are light of the world like he was. We're meant to shine like he did. All right, almost got them all passed out. Notice we let the adults get these and not the kids. We don't even have enough for the kids, so you can hog it. You don't have to share it with your kid. So we're meant to bring the light wherever we go. And what I think is cool, part of bringing the light is that we get to actually shed a different light on who God is. All right? We actually want to help people see God in a different light. See who Jesus is in a different light than maybe they knew growing up. And so we get to shed a different light on people. We don't just tell them that they're in the dark. We actually bring light. We're going to not freak you out. We're going to bring the lights down, so I warned you. So we'll bring that, and let's all turn ours on and just kind of see the power of this much light in one place. Yeah, right? So this is who you are, Jesus says. He says, I'm the light of the world. Now you're the light of the world. Now you're the light of the world. So we bring light that actually pushes back the darkness. Remember, he says, the light's come into the world, the darkness will not overcome it. Won't overcome it. We get to be the light of the world. You know, hold your light out and let's pray. I'm going to pray over you. God, just as we see these lights lighting up in this dark place, let us do that. God, all over Ocean Beach and Point Loma, all over San Diego, places we live, God, our schools, our workplace, our apartment complexes and neighborhoods and streets, they can feel pretty dark at times. And they don't need someone to just tell them they're dark all the time. They need someone to bring light. Help us bring light that pushes back the darkness. Let all that we do shine, that they may see our deeds and praise our Father in heaven. Thanks that you are the light of the world, and then you let us go reflect to be the light of the world. So help us do that, God, and bring light into the darkest area of our own life right now. We got to soak in the light before we reflect it. And so wherever we lack hope right now, wherever we're hiding from you in the dark right now, bring light. Expose it and then light our way. Light our path. Help us walk in the light as you are in the light, so we can go bring the light to our dark places in our world. It's in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. Amen.
If you don't mind standing with us, we're going to sing this last song together. But keep your lights raised.
Just real quick, I just want to share this right before we go into this song. I had a dream this week, and it was about OB, and I felt like it was something of significance. And basically, I felt like there was just a promise over us, a promise for the church in Ocean Beach. And I felt like God was saying, like, I have given you authority. I have given you authority to go out into the world and to love people with my love. And there was something in my dream about eye contact. And basically, God showed me that sometimes we don't always know how to love people, but sometimes it's just a simple thing like making eye contact with someone when you're out and about your day and you're going through the grocery store and you're going through the checkout line. Look them in the eyes. And there's something about the love of God that is communicated when we make eye contact with people and when we take them in and